Most people assume artificial intelligence began in Silicon Valley, somewhere in the 21st century, but long before the first smartphone, long before the personal computer, the Pentagon was already funding research into machines that could learn, reason, and make decisions. And the questions they were asking in the 1960s sound uncomfortably familiar today. Artificial intelligence feels modern because it surrounds us now. Digital assistants answer our voices. Software recognizes faces in photographs. Algorithms separate spam from real messages. Languages are translated in real time. It all feels recent, maybe a product of the last decade or two. But the truth is, more complicated. To understand where these ideas really began, we have to go back to the 1960s. The Cold War shaped everything. The Soviet Union matched the United States in nuclear power. Both sides collected intelligence on a massive scale, far more than any human team could process, and military planners ran into a hard limit. Humans were too slow. Minutes mattered. Radar systems tracked hundreds of potential threats at once. Communications intercepts produced thousands of pages every single day. No matter how skilled the analysts were, human cognition alone wasn't enough, so the Pentagon began asking a dangerous question. Could machines help? Not just calculate, computers already did that, but reason. Could a machine recognize patterns in raw data? Could it learn from experience? Could it assist commanders making life-or-death decisions under pressure? These weren't philosophical debates, they were operational necessities. Military funding soon flowed into what we now call artificial intelligence, even though the term itself was barely 5 years old. Researchers explored pattern recognition, training machines to separate real signals from noise in radar data and satellite images. They worked on automated reasoning systems that could evaluate multiple scenarios at once. Early expert systems were designed to support tactical decisions, not replace human judgment. The goal was simple: reduce information overload. Give commanders tools that humans alone couldn't provide. They understood that machines should learn from data, not just follow rigid instructions. They recognized that the real value wasn't replacing humans, but handling tasks humans struggle with. Sorting massive datasets, maintaining focus for hours, calculating probabilities without emotional bias. They imagined humans and machines working side by side, each contributing different strengths. That idea still defines modern artificial intelligence, but they also underestimated something critical. Not intelligence, but complexity. Computers in the 1960s had a tiny fraction of today's processing power. Memory was expensive. Storage was limited. Researchers believed faster hardware would quickly solve problems that turned out to be far harder than expected. Language understanding, visual recognition, common sense reasoning, tasks children perform effortlessly resisted every algorithm. Progress moved much slower than anyone anticipated. By the mid-1970s, optimism faded, funding dried up, demonstrations failed to meet expectations, military priorities shifted elsewhere. Artificial intelligence entered what became known as the AI winter. Labs shut down. Researchers changed fields. The promise of thinking machines seemed premature, maybe even naive, but the ideas never truly disappeared. They survived quietly, inside universities, inside specialized military labs, far from public attention. Small groups kept working on machine learning, knowledge representation, and language processing. The problems weren't solved, but the questions remained valid. Then something changed. Computing power exploded. Memory became cheap. Data became abundant. And suddenly, ideas from the 1960s became possible. Pattern recognition systems learned to identify objects in images. Language models began parsing human speech. Decision support systems handled complexity beyond human capacity. The future those Pentagon researchers imagined finally arrived, not as a sudden breakthrough, but as delayed fulfillment. The story of Pentagon AI research reveals something important. Technological revolutions rarely appear out of nowhere. They grow from questions asked decades earlier, long before the tools exist to answer them. Military necessity often sparks the exploration. The results eventually spill into civilian life, sometimes in forms the original researchers never imagined. The artificial intelligence we use today traces directly back to a time when computers filled entire rooms and processed data slower than a modern calculator. The tools were primitive, but the vision was clear. Machines that learn, machines that recognize patterns, machines that assist human decision-making in complex environments. It took 60 years for that vision to become reality. The future of artificial intelligence was imagined, long before technology was ready to build it.